Welcome to the Superhero of Love podcast. I am Bridget Fonger. I wrote a book called Superhero of Love, Heal Your Broken Heart, and Then Go Save the World. That book is going to be out in January 2019, but I didn't want to wait until that time to start talking to superheroes of love. And guess what? Here's the news. You are a superhero of love. And through talking to other superheroes like yourself, tapping into that little superhero inside of you, I'm hoping that you and I and all of us start feeling more and more like superheroes of love, meaning that we love and are loved more than ever before. So welcome. Let's get this party started. Welcome, superheroes. We are here with Jaime Alexis Stathis, who has an incredible website and a book that everybody has to run over and check out and order the book. Love is Always the Way Home. And when I found out about her book and her website, I instantly said, even without reading the book, I have to interview you immediately. Because when you come to a website and you see in huge letters on a red background, love is always the way home. And by the way, and it reckons back to my final chapter. That is essentially what the final chapter says, that love is always the way home. So, so it resonated with me. So welcome, Alexis. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to tell people why I know about you and why I instantly trusted that I wanted to interview you. We met in a really cool private Facebook group, which is Jen Pasteloff's on the street team for her book that's coming out on June 4th. So Jen Pasteloff, for you guys that don't know her, she's going to be on the podcast. She said she wants to come on in April. So I'm so excited, counting the days up to when she comes. Jen Pasteloff was at my Love Forward talks that we did on November 11th, and everybody can Google that talk. Go to YouTube and Google Jen Pasteloff Love Forward Talks, and you'll see her amazing talk, you guys. And I'm going to give you a teaser. She ends the talk with the most beautiful. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but I'm just going to tell you that you're going to be moved unless you have a heart of stone, and nobody that's listening to this podcast has a heart of stone. So I love Jen Pasteloff. I cannot wait to read her book.
I keep thinking it's like time for it to arrive in the mail, but it hasn't.
In Jen Pasteloff's little group, Jaime posted, and I was so inspired. So the other
posted.
What? That's the first time you posted?
In there. Yeah, I know. And it's so funny because I wanted to post about my heart book several times, and then I saw her weekly prompt, because I think she does it weekly, right? Like, okay, now tell me how we can support you, right? And I think I kept thinking about it, and then I would just I don't know, forget or just not do it, right? And then yesterday, for some reason, was it yesterday or the day before?
It was yesterday, Friday. Yes, because she does it on Fridays. Yeah.
So I just decided, because I'd seen that article in Vox that there really is still this major crisis going on at the border. And
yes.
I thought, maybe I can sell a few more books or at least bring it to people's attention, right? So it's one or the other. It's like,
so let me interrupt you to say what that's about, because that was the huge inspiration for me asking you to come on.
Oh, cool.
Tell everybody what your book has to do with those kids on the border. So she's talking about the kids. There doesn't seem to be a solution imminently to bring thousands of kids together with their parents right now. And so when I saw that this book supports those families, that is what motivated me to ask you to come on. So please tell them the story about how you came to devoting yourself to this cause.
I have been followed by heart images for a while, and I'll show you, the book. I mean, if you look at my Instagram, you can see them, but there are these hearts that this is melted wax, right? There's a pizza. And I started seeing them around the time that I was taking care of my grandmother with dementia. And so that's like a whole other story, but she lives in New York, and I'd be walking around New York and I'd see a heart on the sidewalk, smashed gum or whatever it was, not necessarily beautiful things, just a crack in something, right? Or a blemish on a potato. So I started taking pictures of them and sharing them on Instagram. It was right around the same time I joined Instagram. And after a while, my friends and like my close friends and even just stranger followers who love this My Heart project. I borrowed the hashtag. It's not my hashtag, but I love it. And they started to say, wow, you should make a little book, right? And my whole thing was, I'm a writer. I am writing a memoir. I am not going to publish some stupid little book of heart pictures, right? I mean, that was not in the game plan, but it bothered me. And I had a friend say, maybe you should get it ready for Christmas this year, or then the next year, maybe you should get it ready for Mother's Day or whatever it was, right? And I just didn't do it. I was too busy writing, doing like my quote real writing, right? But then when June came around, this past June 2018, and we came to our attention that there were thousands of children separated from their families, and I couldn't sleep one night, and this phrase came to me: love is always the way home. And I'm not that like much of a girly girl, really, but I couldn't shake it, right? Love is always the way home. And it was like, how do we get these families home? And it's love, right? And it's connection, and it's coming together to do it. So that's why I finally made this little book. And making it was a labor of love. It was a lot harder than I thought, just to choose the images. It's a very small book, right? It's little. I wanted to make it small, affordable, so I could send more money to the families, basically. It's more of a donation than anything. Plus you get this little inspirational book.
Yay. And you're giving the money to a cause that I really, really, really adore, Glennon Melton Doyle's Together Rising. So tell everybody that doesn't know about Together Rising about what it is and what she's doing specifically with the kids at the border.
Well, so I spent a lot of time, because I wanted to make sure I donated to a place that was going to give as much money as possible to the cause, right? And that's a tricky thing. There's administrative costs and there's all these other things that happen. But, I thought the ACLU, I thought I would give money to them. There were some local on the ground legal rights groups in Texas. I thought about giving directly to them. And then I thought of Glennon, and I thought, she has Together Rising, and I know she's carefully vetting the groups, and she has the ability to guide the money to where it's most needed at any given time. At the time, I know that she was updating her site, and she was saying, we've given 3 million, we've given 4 million, whatever it is. I don't know that Together Rising is still giving money there, or maybe they are, but maybe not as much as they were at the time. So that's why I picked the Texas Civil Rights Project, I think is what it's called, because that's the group that I discovered that right now is doing the most work for So if I'm writing more books, that's where I think the money will go. It could go through Glennon's Together Rising, but I don't know right now if that.
I think what I'll do is, before I post this, I'll look and I'll check out what Glennon's doing and put it in the podcast notes so that it's clear what she's doing. It's so funny because yesterday morning, before I saw your post, I was walking in my driveway and I saw a heart in my driveway. That I have never seen before. I see hearts everywhere too, so it's on my Instagram feed too, but I don't even post all of them. I have tons of them in my phone, obviously, but this one heart, I was like, that's been there since I moved in 4 years ago, and I'm just now seeing it now, and I'm like you. I see hearts everywhere. Like
I saw one this morning in pancakes.
Oh my God, that's so great.
I haven't posted. I saw one yesterday. So I have, it's fun. So for a while, I was taking pictures of every single one that I saw. I mean, unless I was driving too fast in the car or something,
right?
I would stop what I was doing and do it. And then I stopped, but I don't know. It's interesting to me because sometimes I think they come in bunches. And then there's a time where just like, I'm not seeing them very much, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe seeing one, but it's like 2 leaves and it's not a perfect heart, But then after we started chatting yesterday, I saw one in my rotisserie chicken at lunch, and then and pancakes this morning. So
See,
it really is everywhere.
Edible hearts are the best.
Well, it was a heartbreak to eat it, but yeah.
Okay, so before we got on today, I found your amazing essay, which has to do with my book. There's a crossover with my book. So
Cool.
my book is called Superhero of Love, Heal Your Broken Heart, and Then Go Save the World. And I had a bad breakup, and I was blindsided by an avalanche of lies, one of which we share in common.
Right?
And we had been together for 2 years.
Wow.
And I was pretty entrenched even in his family and everything. And so that breakup, though, I couldn't believe that I'd gotten to this place where I was in a relationship for 2 years with somebody who was lying pretty chronically. So I had to get to the bottom of why I was drawn to that and why that felt good and why that worked for me for 2 years. And then what I discovered in the process of healing, and not blaming him, but just pointing toward my own heart and looking at myself and seeing where I played a part in this, obviously, I discovered what I call what we all have, which is a superhero of love inside of us. And so you clearly did the same thing. So I just want to, so tell us about this essay that you have. It's on Medium. And
I forgot that I put it on Medium. So at the time, maybe even still, because I feel like we can't erase bravery, and
that's a great, that we can't erase bravery. That is such a great thought.
So,
beautiful.
Thank you. Well, at the time, I thought it was the bravest thing I'd ever written. It was so intense. I thought, I couldn't, it was only a 3-month relationship. It wasn't very long, but it is core shaking to be duped on that level.
Yeah.
And I, did you read the whole essay? It's pretty long.
Yeah, I did. It's great.
Words or something.
By the way, let me just interrupt and say that it's called Discovering My Boyfriend Has a Wife, and it's on Medium. So if you look for Jaime Alexis Stathis on Medium, you will find that.
So I posted that. I went up, I was living in Montana at the time, and I went up to my favorite hot springs resort. I say resort loosely. It's a very rustic, old, rundown place, but amazing healing water. And I went up there, as I often did, just to, it was like hit my reset button kind of thing. And I sat there, I soaked, and then I went to my room and I wrote that essay. And it came out almost exactly as you read it. It's just what happened. But I posted it and I was terrified. Oh my gosh. People are mean on the internet. And at the time, my blog, it's a WordPress blog, and it's just my name, but it's also Sorry, I'm Not Who You Thought I Was. That's the title of that blog. That title came to me, I think I started that blog in 2011 or 2012. And it was, I don't know why, but every blog post always seems to speak to that topic. Sorry, I'm not who you thought I was. And especially on this case, right, where I've been completely duped and was dating a married man who I didn't know was married. And so I posted it, and I went to the pool, and I soaked, and I fretted, and I couldn't believe I had put myself out there and said this horrible thing, right? Even before I was done processing it. And then, 200 people read it, 300 people read it, 500 people read it. Thousands of people read that blog in days, right? It was the most readers I'd ever had. But the most exciting thing, and this kind of brings it back to present time, is that how many people wrote me private messages saying me too, right? Long before Me Too was a thing. Well, I guess it was a thing, but not the thing that it became. All of a sudden I felt so much less alone. And it was the greatest payoff for that vulnerability was to have that community. And I think 2 people said, "How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you?" Yeah. Somebody else shared it to I think a Cosmopolitan, online, Cosmo magazine, and someone there called me a home wrecker, and I don't know. She didn't read the essay. Sometimes that happens online, but that was. I would say, even though I'd already been writing for a while, that writing that and posting it was really pivotal. for me as a writer. And it really like kind of motivated me. And of course, you know, we have Glennon and we have Brene Brown, right? And we have all these amazing women writers and leaders and thinkers right now telling us how important it is to be brave. To admit, like, you know, sometimes I just lock myself in the bathroom and I cry too, you know, like we all do that, right?
Well, that's what I love about Jen. I mean, you know, Jen is just unvarnished. This is what's going on. These exciting things are happening to me. And then this shit is happening to me as well. I'm human just like you. And I'm processing it just like you are. And I have days where I'm super pissed off and I have days where I'm super full of love. And so it seems like Brene Brown really tripped a switch, you know, years ago with that TED Talk and said, yeah, it's not only is it safe to be vulnerable, but it's brave to be vulnerable. And it's heroic, actually. It's heroic work to put things out there. And I know what that's like, that vulnerability that you feel when because you really do, you open your chest up and show, you know, the pieces of your heart in this essay. And it's also so beautifully written, by the way. I love the way you write. So I look forward to seeing more of your writing. And that person, just FYI for the listener, that person clearly did not read the essay because you specifically reach out to the person that you think is his ex-wife or soon to be ex-wife. And so you clearly communicated with her as if she was a, you know, separated to be divorced ex-wife. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, but you know, that's, I think one of the, I don't know, magical things about getting older, right? Is, you know, fine tuning your gut and listening. Right. And now, I mean, I don't know, there's that scene in the essay where I'm stirring soup and he's working at my kitchen table and I just turn around and say, "Are you married?"
Oh, that was my favorite part. I love that.
Except that I didn't listen to my gut, right? And I let him just explain why and all that and why he was separated and not actually divorced. And, you know, now I think, I mean, I have a different partner now who's great and an incredibly honest man. But like if I wasn't with him and I found myself in that situation again, like I don't think I'd fall for it. But I think it's also a testament to how much we want to be loved. And
in my book I say, did you feel this way? How I felt was his love for me was sparklier and shinier than my own love for myself. So I was like, oh, that's that love. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. I want that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm excited to read your book. And sadly, I have a few friends. I mean, it's part of life in your 40s, but I have a few friends going through divorces right now. And I'm really excited to get it for myself and read it and then hopefully get it for them as well, you know, during
That's so sweet. So I'm going to read this paragraph, though, because I really do love this paragraph. This is from the Medium. You first posted it on your blog, and then did you edit it for Medium, or is it the same exact?
I can't remember.
Okay, anyway.
I edited a little bit. I don't think so, though.
Okay, so I'm just reading it off of Medium. I just wanted to make that qualifier just in case they were slightly different. One night, Bob was doing paperwork at my kitchen table while I heated up chicken soup I'd made over the weekend. The energy in the room was still, more calm than eerie, but the air had a weightiness to it, not unlike barometric pressure right before it drops, right before the storm hits. My thoughts drifted, and without thinking, I turned to Bob, my spoon still in the simmering stock pot. I asked him, "Are you married?" I didn't know the words were coming out of my mouth until they hit the air. So Bob and I heard them together for the first time. I love that sentence so much. We were suspended in an eclipse, both shielded from and protected by each other. But I finally saw the hole in his story that my gut had been telling me was there all along. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm still a little embarrassed by it, you know, but
I have to say, I have that in common with you. Like, so when I met the man I refer to as Mr. X in my book, I met him online, and he was out of the country on a job for the first few weeks of us talking. And, that dangerous thing
now
of meeting.
You know that wasn't true, or was it true?
Oh, no. He was definitely, that was true. Okay. Yeah. Not everything was a lie. No. Yeah. Not everything was a lie. He only lied when it just, in truly, in fairness to him, he had a trauma in his childhood, and from there spurred this lying survivor mechanism.
Okay.
Right. So he's not like, people said he's a sociopath. He's a, whatever. He's a pathological liar. And yes. I don't agree. I don't think that he needs to be labeled that way. And I had my own childhood wounds that were no less ugly than his childhood wounds that led him to do what he was doing. And we were like two little puzzle pieces with our little childhood wounds, just serving each other for a couple of years until, all hell broke loose. But when we met at the first date after speaking for a few weeks, I saw him from afar and I was like, oh, he's not my guy. But I bet he'll be a really good friend, because we had already, had really fun conversations and we really liked each other. So I was like, oh, he's going to be fun. Go in. And the whole time I'm thinking, yeah, he's just going to be a friend. And then he touched the back of my hand at one moment, and like this electricity went through my body. And I was, and he looked at me with that sparkly love, right? Like, oh my God, you're the cat's meow kind of thing. And he literally just ever so gently with one finger touched the back of my hand, right? And it was like, oh, I think I like it. Anyway, those moments of sinking in to something that is your destiny, right? So that you can learn these really big lessons. Like, yes. Thank God for that little moment. Thank God for that little touch, because I needed to learn this really huge lesson. And it took 2 years to learn it. That's okay. We had a lot of fun along the way, just like you had a lot of fun along the way on your, It's not like everything's all bad to get to the end of that lesson. Can I ask you what you did to heal your heart after this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that formula that somewhere along the way ladies learn, where it's like it takes a quarter of the time you were in the relationship.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it was pretty fast, but the thing that,
by the way, my math has never worked that way. It's always been the amount of time I was in.
Plus
it's the amount of time. No, it's the amount of time I'm out.
Oh, wow. Well, you know what? It probably was that. I'm trying to think. So it was like January to April. And then, what did I do? I went to Vegas with some girlfriends, which isn't even something I do very often. I've maybe done 4 times in my life, but it was like, it just, when you're talking to someone and they're like, oh, like with childhood friends, she's like, oh yeah, my sister and I are going to Vegas. And I'm like, when? I want to come, So I basically just did everything and anything that I wanted. But it did more than anything. It really launched me back into writing. And
awesome.
That was because writing and I don't know, like, I think this is probably a lot of true for a lot of people, is like, you get really excited and work hard on a book project, and then I get a couple of like agent rejections or no's, and then it's just like, oh no, I can't, I need to just do something else because it's a whole other kind of rejection.
Right.
And so and then it was summer in Montana, and I just kind of I did not wallow in that. The thing that was so disturbing was just the lying itself. You know what I mean? Not that the relationship itself ended, because I was never sure that he was really the one. I enjoyed him. He was interesting. He was different, than anyone I knew. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that I had been duped to that level. And then of course, when I was talking to his wife and she, it came out that the only one surprised was me.
Wow.
She wasn't surprised by it. It wasn't his first time doing it. And
it wasn't his first time. I didn't catch that. Okay.
No. And if you look at my blog, you'll see maybe a slightly different ending to that. But it wasn't his first time. And yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I didn't know that either. And the women are really accepting, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. It was wild.
Right.
The whole thing.
So the lying, so for me, I dove in and did a bunch of shadow work. I did a workshop with Debbie Ford, the shadow process workshop, and I was unveiling shadows that had brought me to having this be a convenient relationship and a convenient trauma to jostle open my heart so I could look inside. And one of the shadows that I found was this lying shadow, because I had always been my entire life, and I hadn't really noticed it until being with a liar and having this flood of lies come tumbling down all within a couple of weeks, just a huge cacophony of lying. And I had to look inside, and I discovered this little shadow self. And for my listeners, just in case there's anybody new listening today, so shadow selves are those little pieces of ourselves that get kind of disenfranchised from us. And usually in childhood, things happen in our childhood that we can't manage the emotions around by ourselves, and we don't have adults in our lives that can help us navigate those troubled waters. So those little pieces of ourselves get kind of stuck in the shadows of our hearts. And I always think of them as these little closets that I shove these little girls into and close the closet and forget about them for, decades, and then come back and open the closet, and they're either stark raving lunatic mad, or they're, crying and saying, how much longer were you going to leave me in here? I thought you were going to leave me in here forever, those kinds of things. And one of the shadows that I discovered was from when I was 8 years old. My mom had put, and this is in the book, my mom had put the Halloween candy in my closet, in my room. Like, why would you do that to an 8-year-old, right?
For safekeeping.
What?
For safekeeping.
For safekeeping. So I discovered it, and I made a tiny little hole, and I took one little piece out. And then the next day I took another little piece out, and then the hole got a little bit bigger because I had to dive a little deeper. And so soon many pieces were gone, and my mom went in to retrieve the candy and said, "What is going on here? Where is all the candy?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I have no idea." And I was 8 years old, and so it seemed to make sense to point the finger at my toy poodle, Prancer, who
never had to go to the vet and get a stomach pump.
Right. No, luckily my mother saw through that lie, right?
Yeah.
So, and she punished me by canceling my party, but not only canceling my party, she made me tell everybody why my party was canceled because I had lied. Yeah. It's like this really huge, humiliating punishment for my first huge lie of my life. But from that moment, so I shoved that little girl inside, right? I don't even remember my parents were divorced at the time, and I don't even remember talking to my dad about this. So I didn't have any anybody to help me navigate how traumatic that was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but from that moment, what? It
was yours, sort of, right? The candy was yours, kind of.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to tell my mom you said that. Thank you. But what I did in that moment was I said, no lying, no liars, no lying is bad, right? And so I had to manifest this very dramatic reflection of that lying shadow to heal that wound. So that was a really long way to say, was anything like that?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, so one thing that's been a struggle for me as both a writer and my mother's daughter has been like what's on the table to write about and what's not. And it's been an issue for us. I think my mom some way thinks that I have all these terrible things to say. And it's not that. It's just that I grew up in a family where we really didn't talk about any of the negative parts about ourselves. And we just kind of kept smiling and everything was great. So it's a new thing for my family to be a little bit more open and honest in that way. But when this happened with Bob, which is not his real name, I wanted to write about it. And so I went up to the hot springs and I did. But the other part was that I asked my mother before I posted it, which is something I really hadn't ever asked her permission about anything else before. But I said, I feel like if I write this essay about my experience accidentally dating a married man, I'm not telling the whole truth if I don't also tell that you had relationships with married men when I was a kid, and that I promised myself, like through and through, that I would never do that. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't knowingly do it, but I did do it. And it wasn't the biggest piece, but it was an important piece to my mother and I finding some peace over that topic. It was sort of a taboo thing that we were never really supposed to talk about, but it was, she might disagree with this, but it was damaging to me. It was to watch my mother engaged in relationships repeatedly that with emotionally unavailable people.
Right.
So for me to say, I'm only going to date emotionally available people was sort of like I'm going to have zero tolerance for liars. Right. And then look who shows up. It's like the most emotionally unavailable. And to be honest, most of the men I had dated before, it was a bit of a crescendo to this incident where it was like, oh, this guy is a drug addict and he's emotionally unavailable. And this guy, is stuck in the mentality of a 17-year-old. And then there was this guy who came along who had like a job and he seemed like he was, had it all together, but no, he was the absolute worst of it all.
So you had the pattern. You actually were following her pattern of being with emotionally unavailable men.
Yeah, I was, but they weren't married. So I thought it was different, but it was the exact same.
Got you. Yeah.
Thing. I didn't realize that.
But now you're with somebody so it's kind of similar, right? Like you had that crash and burn, and out of the Phoenix Rising, now you've healed that, and now you are with an emotionally available man, correct?
Yes. And I actually had a therapist that I was seeing at the time, and she said, "Why don't you pick next time?" She said,
instead of being picked.
She said, you always get picked by these guys, and then you I think it's flattering, or I don't know what I thought. But she said, why don't you pick? And so one of the things that I did, I guess, to heal from that experience was something that was just a lovely part of my life at the time living in Montana, was I hiked with my girlfriends and we talked and talked, right? And if those hills could talk, they know all of our secrets. And we just hiked and we walked and talked and everything, and I felt like I couldn't like physically or emotionally sustain one more terrible breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did pick, right? And the guy I picked is the guy I'm with now. I dated casually, like a little bit, in between rather. But it was like, no, this isn't right. So I didn't pick, right?
Right.
And, so it's interesting when you give yourself that power and that option to do the picking and not just let somebody else, passively choose you. Yeah. It's a lot better.
That's so powerful. I agree. And I love also, I have this concept in my book called the Love League, and which is what you did, gathering your girlfriends together. But for me, I actually had to like have love leaguers in every different time zone because I needed them to all stop me from calling him because I was so enraged by the lies because they just kept coming. It seemed like they weren't stopping the lies. So I was so enraged that I needed people to say, no, Bridget, you don't need to call him, or say, okay, what do you think would happen if you called him? and or can you tell me what you would say to him instead of saying it to him, or can you write a letter or whatever,
Yes.
So, but yeah, our posses, right? Our posses are so important to creating a safe space.
Important, yeah.
So for them to find your book, and I'll put a link on the podcast notes to check out the book, but tell them everywhere that they can find you, your writings, your book, and everything.
Thank you. So I love making new friends and connecting on Facebook. And so that's just Jaime Alexis Stathis. Let's see. I have a little list here. I have Instagram for myself, Jaime Stathis, but I also have Love is Always the Way Home, and that's just heart images. And I had kind of abandoned that. So I want to say thank you for kind of bringing me back to this project, because, the families aren't all back together. We know that, but it's just important to me that I keep this book alive in some way. Right. And that the pressing issue hopefully will pass, but Love is Always the Way Home on Instagram, and it's also a hashtag. So if anybody, if you want to post your driveway heart and put Love is Always the Way Home, that would be awesome. Yeah, so basically Facebook and Instagram. My WordPress blog is, I haven't posted on there did you go there, or did you just?
I did go there.
Okay.
I did go there, and then I found the Medium article, and I just got entrenched in that.
Yeah. So I haven't posted there for a while, and I'm kind of on the fence if I want to resurrect that. Sorry, I'm not who you thought I was, or start something new. So I'm undecided. I guess I can officially say I'm on the tail end of finishing writing a memoir.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic! That's why you haven't been on your blog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I tried to do it both. I moved to California in May, and from Montana, and found a great writing group and workshops and pieces. My writing teacher said, okay, you're done. You just need to go write. No more workshops. You don't need to do this. You have everything you need. So I rented a little cottage. It's very close to my house, 45 minutes away. They have yoga on site. They deliver fresh croissants in the morning. And,
oh my God.
And I think it's going to be great. So so I'm going to go work on that. And then I'm going to start posting as I look for representation, and hopefully we'll be able to sell that book. I'll start posting, I think, excerpts on either Sorry, I'm Not Who You Thought I Was, or some other new blog. But it'll all be on Facebook and Instagram too. I love, love, love connecting with other writers in all stages, people who are just trying to figure out what's my story, I know I have a story, but I can't figure out what it is. And people like Jen and you who have published books out in the world already.
All right. Well, I can't wait to get your book, and love the essay. I will put all the links everywhere, and I'm going to dive in and check out what Glennon Mountain Doyle is doing right now with Together Rising on the Border, so that we have that update. And just thank you so much for coming. It was so great. And I can't believe we have so much in common too, which is just always fun when you find more sisters that share your experience.
Absolutely.
So that was Jaime Alexis Stathis, and I just checked out the Glennon Mountain Doyle site, togetherrising.org. You can check it out, and there's a page specifically dedicated to everything that's happening on the border, and I will post that link in the podcast notes for everybody. And she even mentioned on her site the Texas Civil Rights Project, among other really great organizations. So lots of places to give. I'm about to go do that myself. Thanks for joining. If you like the podcast, please, 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 please go over and give us a rating, subscribe, share it with your friends, bring more superheroes of love into the fold. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, superhero.